Are we rolling?
Yes, we are.
Well, I'd say the first most surprising thing I learned about red light therapy was that it was used in 1896 by the father of phototherapy, Niels Rydberg Finsen, to successfully cure smallpox in 151 out of 152 patients that he used it on. And this time period, it was simply filtering the sun through a red cloth to deliver the benefits of red and infrared therapy to the body and allowing patients to recover from a disease that even today, if you Google, is there a cure to smallpox, you'll get a resounding no. And yet here we are 127 years later, after someone did it, won the Nobel Prize 7 years later for his work in light, and is still surprising whenever I bring it up to people, because it's one of these use cases of a terrifying, incurable disease that's perhaps one of the deadliest diseases of human history that we have treatments for, that we have a cure for. And it's called red light therapy, and yet we still don't shout it from the rooftops from every medical establishment that exists, as we should be. The coolest experiment, well, I will say one of the ones that is meaningful in my life as far as my learning on red light therapy is I purposefully exposed my arm to very high levels of UVC radiation to induce a sunburn. And then I healed half of my arm using red light therapy. And just within 24 hours of running this experiment, you could see that the portion of my skin that had been exposed to only UVC light had a crusty red peeling sunburn, and the portion that got the same amount of UVC ultraviolet radiation but also received red light therapy looked barely different than my untouched skin. This is one of the first instances where I could see personally on my own body for myself just how meaningful of a benefit red light therapy was when it came to healing, and in this case from healing sunburn. But the same reason that red light therapy heals sunburn is the same reason that red light therapy heals every cell of our body, which is increasing blood flow, reducing inflammation, and increasing cellular energy, or ATP. But this was the first time I did an experiment on my own body that I couldn't quite believe my own eyes the coming day, 2 days after. If I could use red light therapy to solve any global problem, I would say health in general. But if I went to one step more specific than health in general, I would say chronic degenerative disease, which is a large term, but basically our body, as we age, breaks down. Every cell becomes more tired, more wilting, more withered. Red light therapy reverses that. The analogy I like to pull is if you take a plant and you move it inside, cut off from its natural supply of sunlight, it will begin to wither and to wilt. Right now, the healthcare system is looking at that plant and saying, what drug do we give this plant to make it stop withering and wilting? We must design a better chemical to make this plant stop withering and wilting. Whereas red light therapy says the plant needs sunlight. In fact, all water-based organisms, as all of them are, as we're currently aware, need sunlight and infrared radiation to grow and to thrive. And so I would tackle first chronic degenerative disease, which I think another term for that in the context of light therapy is wilting and withering. We wilt and wither less obviously than a plant does, and a lot of that is happening internally. Organ failures, high blood pressure resulting from sticky blood that has low energy, but we also see it expressed externally in the loss of hair, in the paling and drying out of skin, in acne, in sores and ulcers of the body that don't heal or don't heal at the same rate, in bones, in fractures that don't heal at the same rate they do when you're in your youth. And right now, the largest medical complaint deals with lower back pain, knee pain, and neck pain. All of those forms of pain can be drastically reduced by red light therapy, and most importantly, healed by red light therapy. So light addresses the healing of the underlying damage causing pain, not just the reduction of the pain, which is what a numbing pharmaceutical might do. Light therapy supports the healing process to otherwise heal the damage that's causing you pain in the first place. Oh, absolutely. I think from a purely economic point of view, red light therapy is one of the greatest investments that every human being, and by extension, every government can make in the populace. This is a drastically lower cost therapy than anything else that would be a chemical intake, which of course leads to the irony that's probably part of the reason that we don't see it everywhere, is that the profit incentive to heal someone's underlying condition is drastically outweighed by the profit incentive to manage someone's symptoms. And I believe that this is part of the difficult reality of our current healthcare and sick care paradigm that people are starting to be aware of, which is it's a business, healthcare. I don't think it should be, but here we are. It's a business. It's a very profitable business. And in something that generates $1,000 a year from a patient is going to have much more marketing dollars, much more awareness than something that costs a few $100s and otherwise solves that issue for the coming years. And so I think governments, from a pure economic standpoint, need to invest in red light therapy, given that the reduction of healthcare spending would go down drastically. But more importantly, governments and the populations at large need to invest in red light therapy and related technologies, because the health of the individual is so meaningfully and profoundly improved. And therefore, from a pure humanitarian point of view, we need to make red light therapy accessible to every human being on the planet. And until it is, then we'll keep working towards it. I think public education is the key component of how we move towards red light therapy being a standard of care across all medicine. If you're aware of the benefits of red light therapy and, importantly, why red light therapy works, the scientific mechanisms, the biological mechanisms that our body absorbing light derive from the energy that is impacting my skin right here, when we're educated to that, when we're aware of that, it becomes something that in hindsight is blindingly obvious. So I've seen people in my own life all the time where they have, say, a chronic knee issue and they've been living with it for a decade. And then a week goes by of using red light therapy and suddenly their knee pain has been reduced down to the point of no longer having knee pain. In hindsight, they're like, where has this been all of my life? How have I not been aware of this? How have I not known about this? And that gap right now, I believe, is a gap that education and personal experience needs to fill. Personal experience will always be more powerful to the individual than the educational aspect. Once you feel the results of red light therapy, you no longer need to be convinced of the results of red light therapy. But at the same token, once you're aware of how water interacts with sunlight and generates an electrical charge, once you really sit with that and you really understand that our mitochondria literally convert energy from life into usable cellular energy, whether it's on your body or cells scraped off your arm on a petri dish, we simply increase our ATP or cellular energy production through absorbing red infrared light. Once you really sit with that, you can see just how important and impactful our light exposure in general is. Sunlight exposure being a key primary component of our radiant health environment. Red light therapy then being understood basically as a supplement to what we would otherwise be getting naturally from the sun that we can now do indoors, given our environments where we work inside, where we live inside, we spend most of our days cut off from natural sun access. And so there's I'm very passionate about the education side of this thing. I think that we could understand red light therapy on a kindergarten level, on a 5th grade level, on a high school level, on a collegiate level, on a doctorate level, but all of them point toward the same underlying core sentence, basically, which is the body heals itself, light gives you energy. When you understand the body is much more intelligent and intuitive than any designed chemical that we can synthetically create, when you trust the body to heal itself and understand that light allows it to do those processes, improve with more ATP, with more blood flow, with less inflammation, it becomes very obvious, again, in hindsight, of how many places we can currently use red light therapy that we're not, and importantly, how many places we can deploy this technology that doesn't have negative side effects. In the same way that if someone is chronically dehydrated and you give them water, they begin to feel better. They're like, wow, my mood's improved, my energy's improved. It's like, yes, because you were chronically dehydrated and now you're drinking water again. I think that directly applies to our relationship with light right now. We are chronically solar dehydrated. And when you introduce someone back into the proper solar environment, both through natural exposure to the sun and also through the supplement of red light therapy, every aspect of their health improves, basically from day one, without the negative side effects. So understanding it as body healing itself and light giving you energy, and understanding it as chronic light dehydration, I think are going to go a very long way to making this a standard of care in medicine, but also just a regular part of our diet as far as humans moving forward. Yeah, so the main challenge I see in conversations about red light therapy and at trade shows or just general education is the public sentiment that it's too good to be true. And if it were as good as you're saying, then clearly I would already know about it. This is a phenomenon that I think is best sort of summed up by the word inertia. Inertia being something that is already exists, kind of is stuck. And there's a certain amount of force that you need to overcome the stuckedness of a concept or of an idea. And so red light therapy is this incredible, dare I say, miraculous therapy that gives the body energy and the body heals itself. However, we are so stuck and locked and bought into a biochemical paradigm of our body and of the health of the organism that when we see something as simple, as beneficial and as safe as red light therapy, we immediately, as a reflex, have to push it off because we can't grapple with that being true at the same time not being aware of it for the last 27 or 50 years or 70 years of your life. And so I completely understand that sentiment. That's one of the most common things that I see in these conversations. And so the way that we move past that is we give people their own personal and meaningful experiences. So even if you're 70 years old and you've been suffering from chronic knee pain for 30 years and you believe that you've tried everything, once you sit down and try a red light therapy session and then stand up and flex your knees and start to have that shift of belief, that shift of understanding the organism's requirements being simple, water, sunlight, proper breathing, etc., and away from a complex, very profitable biochemical and synthetic chemical produced mindset, is I see it's how we overcome this hurdle. It's overcome through personal, meaningful healing experiences. It's overcome through clear, concise education. It's overcome through the improved accessibility of the products, which is a major factor of why this conversation is being had now. Now the LEDs are so price accessible. But I think, yeah, it's that major challenge that a lot of innovative technologies run into, which is, if this is so good, then why isn't it yet? Which is, of course, I always point back to then, we've actually been doing light therapy for as long as we've been an organism, reaching a homeostasis with our solar environment. And we've been doing kind of scientific light therapy ever since the father of medicine, Hippocrates. The Hippocratic oath that doctors take is based on Hippocrates of Greece, who would take people to the island of Crete and let them bathe under filtered glass solariums, where they would be doing red light therapy on this island, recovering from their disease in such a consistent, positive way that he became known as the father of medicine. And so we've been doing light therapy for thousands of years, yet here we are existing now in a industrial Western world, and it's now feels like a new topic, when in actuality, it's the oldest modality of healing that we are aware of. And I think that gap is going to be bridged soon, hopefully in the year, hopefully in the next couple of years. But as soon as it is, we're going to see massive improvements to healthcare, massive reductions of healthcare spending, and just a great sense of wellness of life, of our standard of care being based in our natural requirements of an organism, rather than being based in what can I add as a chemical to numb the thing I'm feeling. We're moving away from that and moving towards what's my body need as an organism to be in homeostasis with my environment. And that's where light therapy really comes in. One of the things I love about Lumaflex, as I mentioned a little bit before, is the accessibility. So the way that we get red light therapy into every home across the world is you make it accessible. You make a high quality product. You make it easy to use, whether you're driving in your car or laying in your bed. And Lumaflex does all these things in a wonderful way, to all the way to the point that that's the device that I use and the device that I put myself behind, given that it is just so easy. It's just so easy. And once you make something so easy that it becomes part of your routine, then you no longer think about it. It just is part of your routine. You just have red light therapy as a routine. It's a part of your day that you start to recognize how impactful it is for yourself, that you then want to become an advocate for your friends, for your families. So when you hear about someone hurting their knee or throwing out their back or having a tendon, your mind doesn't first go to what drug can you take to reduce and numb those symptoms. Your mind goes to, have you heard about red light therapy? Here's my pad. Why don't you try it? Why don't you use it? And so Lumaflex as a product is a really great example of the way this industry is moving, which is a decade ago, to build a product that had the power output of Lumaflex would cost tens of thousands of dollars just because of the LED cost, or the little microchips that emit light in these biologically relevant wavelengths. Now, here we are in 2024, we can get a product for a few $100s that we can use for the next years and years and years. Battery operated, wireless, something that would have been impossible even just a few years ago. So we're really in an exciting time for red light therapy, where the technology that has previously been relegated to only clinical, healthcare, medical, hospital settings is now the exact same technology and the exact same product, the exact same power outputs can now be on your back while you're driving, can now be on your knee while you're watching TV. And Lumaflex makes all of that high quality, simple, easy, accessible at an affordable price. Building a waterproof device, and for any electronic device, is definitely a heavy lift. You have to have a lot of sealing so that all of the circuit board components aren't getting impacted by the moisture, even a little bit of moisture, much less full submersion, as I understand Lumaflex is rated for. And so what this allows for, of course, though, is then a very robust product that is resilient to the environment. So whether that just means you're working out, sweating onto your device, whether that means it's coming with you into the shower, or the bath, or to the cold plunge, it really makes sort of this jack of all trades red light therapy device that you can throw in your bag, not worry about breaking down or sputtering out from a short circuit of the humidity of your environment. But it's difficult. There's been many red light therapy devices in the market for the last couple decades now, but only in the last year or so have we had a device that has the same functionality, the same size and footprint, with the wireless capabilities, with the waterproof capabilities, with the high power output of dual core LEDs emitting both red and infrared light, and that Lumaflex has. Those are the reasons that I use Lumaflex, that I'm a Lumaflex user. With all the other options that exist, you can put it right on your skin, as opposed to panels that you're kind of putting away from your body and hoping you get the right irradiance levels. I always recommend direct-to-skin contacts, red light therapy devices, as Lumaflex is based on, which is another reason that flexible silicone frame is so wonderful. You can wrap it around your knee, as opposed to touching it to your knee that a static or a rigid panel would. And it's really just form-fitting, easy to use, accessible, with the robustness that comes from very diligent engineering. Great question. So in terms of wavelength, Lumaflex is emitting 630 nanometer red light and 850 nanometer near infrared light. These are key wavelengths for the healing and recovery of the body. Red light is more superficial, as in it only impacts about the first centimeter or so to the skin, the pores, which is great for increased blood flow to the surface of the body, and also for cosmetic benefits, such as for the skin, as well as for hair growth. Whereas the 850 nanometer wavelength in the near infrared range, which is invisible to our eyes, but we feel as this warm, gentle heat, sort of like the sunbathing heat that you receive, is wonderful for the muscle, the bone, the tissue underneath the skin. This is the wavelength that provides the primary healing benefit as it relates to something like back pain or neck pain or knee pain. This light is absorbed into the muscle and bone tissue and is used to increase blood flow, reduce inflammation, and increase cellular energy or mitochondrial energy or ATP production. All these benefits combine in these two wavelengths to give you a full healing experience, both on the surface of the skin and all the way down to that muscle, bone tissue. The intensity of red light therapy devices is a very key metric, also called the irradiance, or the amount of light being emitted from the LED per unit area, per unit time, or kind of the flow rate of light coming out. What's wonderful about Lumaflex, and why I'm so high on Lumaflex, is that you have direct skin contact of the pad to the body. It's actually a very important concept for red light therapy devices, because the distance away from the device has a drastic impact on the amount of light per unit time that you're receiving. So for example, a Lumaflex device on any part of your body, we know exactly the dose of light or the amount of light that you're getting during a 10-minute session, because it's right there on the skin. Whereas if you have a device that is, let's say, a panel that's says use 6 inches away, and you do it at 8 inches away, or 4 or 12 inches, those all have wildly different irradiance values, because light has an inverse square fall off, where basically the further you are away, the exponentially less light you're receiving. All this to say is that I recommend red light therapy devices that are direct skin contact, that are using light in both the red and near infrared range. which are both the two major metrics I look for, that Lumaflex check on both. In a very big way. We also want to make sure that whenever we're using a red light therapy device, that we have the proper LED irradiance in general. So people will ask me, can I just install a red light bulb in my house and then walk around my house and do red light therapy? And the answer is no, but I see why you're asking. So let me clarify. The red light that you see, this visible wavelength, say of a red light bulb in your home that is now while you're walking around, that emits red light. You visibly see the red light. However, the amount of energy your body's receiving is wildly low relative to that red light bulb being pressed directly against your skin. And so while red light in your home is great to minimize sort of the artificial blue light of the environment, to help you wind down at night to match circadian rhythm of the natural solar environment, a red light bulb in your home is not the same as having a red light panel or a Lumaflex pad right up against your skin, because it comes down to the amount or the dose of light that your body's receiving. All that to say is that you want direct skin contact in the red and near infrared range, something that Lumaflex does very well, and is why it's the product that I choose to use. First, basically, red light therapy as a healing modality, as a therapy, needs to be understood by the masses. This is kind of a cooperative effort among the whole industry of light therapy, as right now we are maybe 1 out of 100 people would know it off the side of the road if you were to pose this question, and much less than that had probably already used the product and had a meaningful healing experience. So I think until we're talking about the whole market, say take the US for example, every American at a minimum at least being aware of red light therapy, and at the next minimum, trying it at least once on their chronic degenerative disorder. I think until we get there, then the brands, only then do kind of the brands all fight and become scrappy between one another. I think until it's part of the public consciousness, the general sentiment of healthcare, it's a cooperative effort among red light therapy brands to basically further the education, provide as many meaningful, positive experiences that you can provide, whether that's through trade shows, or selling the product, or pop-up booths, or ads, or you know, whatever it provides. I think as we approach that point where everyone's becoming aware of red light therapy and how it can benefit them, then the individualized brands and their individualized products becomes extremely relevant. Because the question rightly becomes, well, which is the best one? If I'm already believe in red light therapy, and I already know that red light therapy can help my back pain, then I want to know, how do I actually do that at home, rather than at my doctor's office, rather than at that trade show I saw the product? How do I do that in the comfort of my own home? Well, NFL players, like anyone playing a sport, can benefit from red light therapy through faster recovery, through improved muscle growth, through sort of more explosive muscle usage. These are all downstream impacts of what red light therapy does to the body, which is increasing blood flow, reducing inflammation, and increasing cellular energy, or ATP production. One of my favorite case studies of red light therapy, it's very relevant to sports performance, was a homozygotic twin study, or two identical twins, collegiate soccer players, who both did the same 6-week workout. One of them got sham red light therapy, so red light, but way less energy than needed to stimulate the body's processes, and the other twin received red light therapy. And after just 6 weeks of this exact same workout, so the identical twin bodies, the twin who got red light therapy to his legs was able to leg press 41% more weight than his identical twin. So when people ask me how, does red light therapy actually work? It's like, I don't know what more metric you could look for than an identical twin study within 6 weeks of use. I know this is a very fast time period as it relates to the sports season, showing such a massive improvement to your muscle ability. So I see there's a future coming of NFL, of MLB, of NHL, every sport, every professional sport, when we're doing proper red light therapy and we're actually maximizing our benefit we receive from it, how much more this impacts the sport. I think we'll see things like swim times, records be broken. I think we'll see a lot of these sports that have very particular individualized metrics, like swimming, like running. I think we're going to see a boost to what we previously thought was possible in a future where we're maximizing our solar intake, and by extension, our red light therapy intake, to have every mitochondria in our body running at optimal capacity. So NFL Super Bowl, I think that that's going to become a major conversation point in the coming years of what teams, what players are using this therapy, kind of as like the positive analogy to steroids. Like, you can't use them. Who's using them to get this unfair advantage? I think we'll see the same thing with red light therapy of who's using it, what teams are using it to get this incredible natural advantage that we all should otherwise be doing, because if you're not doing it, you're basically chronically dehydrated. It's like, what teams are chronically dehydrated and what teams have proper water intake. I think that's going to be a major conversation of the sporting world going forward. Football is a great example of how red light therapy is currently being used in incredibly important ways. One, of course, muscles, bone, tissue, and tendon growth are rapidly aided with red light therapy. In a sentence, the body heals itself, light provides the energy. But more importantly, as it relates to NFL and football, is there's now incredible clinical research and individuals who are experiencing benefits to stroke and to concussion and to brain-related injuries. So the same reason that red light therapy can help a degenerative back bone repair itself, you can have the brain, bruises on the brain start to repair themselves through increased blood flow, reduced inflammation, and increased cellular energy and ATP. And what's so important about the brain aspect of red light therapy is the brain is a very difficult organ to try to treat through a biochemical or a pharmaceutical paradigm. We basically don't have anything good, and I don't expect us to ever find a chemical that can help alleviate bruises on the brain, versus red light therapy, and in this case more particularly infrared light therapy, where the brain directly absorbs energy and then uses that to heal itself. The brain knows it has a bruise right here. The brain knows it's been impacted through 100 tackles, through 100 head-on-head collisions. It's not unaware of that damage. It simply doesn't have the resources it needs to heal that damage, to grow new neurons, to sort of detox what's kind of the constricted things that are caught once you take so much brute force impact. So I think as it relates to NFL, one of the most impactful benefits that we'll see is not only the performance-enhancing impact, but people that have left the sport who are now suffering from these micro concussions, from these macro concussions, who are having strokes at younger and younger ages, who are finding relief post-stroke, but more importantly, are preventing from even having the stroke in the first place by increasing the energy to their brain through red and infrared light therapy. The most creative use for light therapy? Well, the one that jumps to mind first is some of my friends who use red light therapy comment about how their cats become lovers of red light therapy, all the way down to the sound of the light clicking on. The cat will dart from the other room and lay in front of it. And so I'll often say animals have a much more intuitive sense of what's healthy and what's not healthy than we humans do. Also, of course, animals, but now clouded with our sort of all the distractions of life. And so cats are a great example of this animal that, like a human, absorb red and infrared light to increase blood flow, reduce inflammation, increase ATP. And in a natural outdoor environment, the cat would be getting way more solar exposure than you would be getting living inside, closed off from that natural source of red light therapy. And so, it's a surprising thing when you buy a product for your knee and then your cat becomes the primary user of it in your house. But what's awesome is I've seen animals recover from diseases, even tumors, that previously you can't really treat, because it's like, okay, you're going to give the animal a drug, or you're going to have something removed, you're going to go to the vet. They all become expensive, difficult, complex issues. Whereas when you recognize the body heals itself and light gives you energy, the cats, the dogs, these pets absorb light and use it to heal themselves. And really it's just mimicking your homeostasis with the natural environment. So when the dogs and the cats and the humans were running around living outdoors, we got way more sunlight than we are getting now. And that comes with a whole slew of positive benefits, but the ones that we're most aware of right now are just this improvement to healing speeds, of healing chronic injuries that otherwise aren't healing. And so I always smile when I see photos of, I've got some really cute photos now of cats laying in front of panels, of laying in front of bulbs. And I'm like, see, they get it. They don't need to be convinced of the science. They know that it feels good. And they know that that act of it feeling good is this swell of energy filling their body. And so that's been a surprising thing I didn't expect to see as consistently as I do. It's a great question, and the answer is kind of like look around you in a sense. The body in most all industrial places across the world, we are trapped inside, whether we want to use the word trapped or not, or whether we recognize it or not. But especially this part of our body to this part of our body, right, is very trapped inside. I'd probably say over 99% of people don't get any sunlight exposure, at least regularly, from their knees up and their elbows down, you know? And so this whole core torso of our body, one, visually looks very different. You know, it's like tan and hairy, tan and hairy, tan and hairy, pale, no hair, you know, every man's thigh after a certain distance. And then we wonder why we have all these chronic issues springing up. A great example is actually I think that is easy to conceptualize is breast cancer. Breast cancer is one of these things where I don't know almost any women who get any amount of sunlight, right, to the middle of their chest. Yet we used to. That used to be a very, very normal thing, living in environments where we were in homeostasis with our solar environment. When you so directly cut off exposure to this energy source, it would be weird if you didn't have chronic issues spring out from the body. It would be weird if you didn't have reduced blood flow. It would be weird if you didn't have chronic inflammation. It would be weird if you didn't have low levels of mitochondrial ATP. It's like taking a plant outside, putting it inside, and that being so confused as to why it's withering and wilting. It's like it needs sunlight, like every organism does. All of our energy derives from the sun. Even the temperature, what we call temperature, is slow-released sunlight in the infrared spectrum. Everything absorbing sunlight by the day and slowly releasing it at night. That blanket of warmth is even sunlight. And we forget how important our radiant environment or the light of our environment is. We typically use the word light to refer to what we should be saying as visible light. A tiny portion of the overall spectrum of which we're bathed in a massive sea of light, capital L, or electromagnetic radiation. All of us intuitively know the answer to this, because I'll say, take a healthy person, put them in a cave for a year. Give them food and water, give them what they need, but they're just in a cave, cut off from light. And then take them out a year after and observe that person. What do you see? What you would see is the skin has paled, of course. The hair has started to thin and fall out. The blood flow of the body has been reduced, and the blood has kind of become stickier. The word I like to use is sticky blood, as opposed to high blood pressure, as opposed to pre-diabetic. The body is lower in energy, right? The person feels this sort of winter blues, this seasonal effect of depression. Those are all downstream impacts of your light environment as well. That's another tangent. And if you take this cave for a year person, and then recognize that basically every single one of us, with rare exceptions, are cave person between this torso portion of our body, because our current way of living for the vast majority of people don't have the ability to go get sunlight exposure to these portions of the body, which is why red light therapy is so essential. I would love if everyone could go get a 1 hour full sunbathe every day to the front and back of their nude body, but that's not possible for the vast majority of people. What is possible is having a red light therapy LED device that you can use at your desk, that you can use in bed, that you can use on the couch, and otherwise supplement that massive amount of solar exposure that we would otherwise be getting, being in homeostasis with our natural environment, that we aren't right now. And so one of the easy ways then to conceptualize red light therapy is all the things that lack of light harm you, red light therapy reverses those things. So if your skin is becoming pale and wrinkled and the hair is falling out and the acne is developing and the degenerative bone are increasing in porosity with osteoporosis, with degenerative cartilage, with degenerative bone tissue, all those things that are symptoms of having too little energy in the body are all things that when you have proper energy in the body begin to repair and heal themselves. The body knows it has osteoporosis. It's not confused that it has osteoporosis. It just simply doesn't have the means, the resources, the energy to heal that osteoporosis, as one small example.
Just sounds like England, to be honest.
Sounds like England. There are so many places, even people that are living in, say, sunny Miami. Yeah. The lifestyle living in sunny Miami doesn't translate to going and getting full body sun baths every day, because most likely you're still working inside, especially during the hours of the day when the sun is most powerful, right? So you might be in the office from 9 to 5 p.m. By the time that you're not anymore, the sun is already really low in the sky, where you can still get meaningful benefit, but you're not getting that raw energy, including the UV light, tangent, but UV light is not only a burning bad thing, it actually has important, massive positive implications on the electricity of the body, but I'll save that. But between England, between the Midwest, between all these cold, wintry places, again, it would be weird if we didn't develop depression in the winter when we're so low on light, when we're so low on even seeing sunlight. It would be strange if we didn't have chronic degenerative illnesses not resolving themselves when we're in an environment where we have only maybe 1% of the otherwise solar energy that we'd be getting in our natural homeostasis.
Yeah.
And so these things in the context of light therapy become obvious in hindsight, but in the context of our current sort of healthcare biological paradigm are very complex. And we're like, how do we design a better drug to deal with this lack of energy in the winter? It's like, whoa. No, it's a lack of energy. It's not a thing a chemical needs to resolve. It's a thing that energy needs to resolve. Energy, of course, in its traveling manifestation being light. Light is energy in motion. And we sort of forget how these two words connect. So we even use intuitive language like, I'm so low on energy today. It's like, we know what we're saying. We're saying I don't have the motivation. I don't have the thing inside me. It's like a flame that otherwise might be lit up is quiet and it's cold. And it's like, yes, those are all symptoms of being low on solar exposure. And we forget that. And so we make super complex yet profitable names and treatments to help something that is like chronic dehydration, a very simple fix. If I were to go to the doctor as a chronically dehydrated person, I could get diagnosed with 12 different diseases, 24 different diseases. But it wouldn't matter if the doctor simply said, here's water, you're chronically dehydrated. Those diseases, those downstream impacts of chronic dehydration would no longer be relevant to me because I'm hydrated again. It's the exact same thing with our light hydration, our light environment. We just don't yet recognize that the vast majority of us are chronically dehydrated of sunlight, and that the way we resolve that is natural exposure and red light therapy. That's a great question. I think red light therapy is the ultimate case of sort of sovereignty in medicine, taking back your health as the individual, not relying on the opinion or even the education of a trained professional, and instead relying on the innate natural wisdom of the incredible body that we have to heal itself if it has the energy to do so. So I think a point that we've really strayed in industrialized world is overcomplicating a lot of issues. Like as I sort of just said, if you're chronically dehydrated, you can name 30 symptoms, and you could call every one of those symptoms a disease. But until you resolve your dehydration, it doesn't matter what you take because your body needs water. Same exact thing with light. Until you resolve your chronic deficiency of light exposure, it doesn't matter what you name all your symptoms. It doesn't matter what chemical you take. None of them will work because they're not addressing the lack of energy that your body is receiving. And so I think red light therapy and light therapy in general is the ultimate way that we can take back our sovereignty in medicine. We can say, I trust my body to heal itself. I don't know, I don't tell my back how to grow more cartilage or bone. I trust my body to do that. I just make sure it has its proper water, its proper light. I minimize the intake of toxins that I'm ingesting and that I'm breathing. And I live an active, healthy lifestyle. And when I do these things, my body heals itself. I don't need to externalize my reliance on a chemical or a drug. I also don't need to externalize my fear of something like a disease attacking me or a thing happening to me, as opposed to a thing arising from within me based upon my lifestyle and my behavior and my choices, and maybe the toxins that I'm unwittingly or knowingly or unknowingly ingesting. And so I think that there's a big movement happening of health in general, where health becomes sort of more natural, where health becomes elemental again, where health becomes recognizing the organism, the physics of the organism in health, as opposed to where we currently are, which is how much can I spend on a chemical that will resolve this thing over here, but hopefully not affect this thing over here. That's actually impossible. If they tell you differently, it's because there's money to be made. And so I think there's a big movement now happening of this sort of health sovereignty in a sense. And I think if there's a movement of health sovereignty, the sword that you bear of that is red light therapy. It's the jack of all trades. It's the thing that if you bruise your knee, you use it on, or if your grandfather has a stroke, you use it on that. Because it's as simple as the body heals itself, light therapy gives you energy. I would say a pretty consistent funny thing I get asked, just because in hindsight, the individual kind of feels silly once they realize it, is using devices that aren't actually turned on. So when we say the majority of the light coming out of this device is invisible, I've seen people take pads and panels and other devices and think that they're using them, but they're really just sitting in front of a device that's off. And then when I see this or when I hear about their experience, I'll laugh because it's a good example of how different of sort of a paradigm we're working towards this, which is like people exposing themselves to light, right? But when you don't know what that looks like or you've never seen anyone do it, you think you're doing the therapy by sitting in front of a device that's turned off. Versus sitting in front of a device that is emitting near-infrared light that you feel as this sort of mild, warm, sort of sunlit heat. So I've had individuals that have, given me, say, a pad back, and they're like, I didn't really feel anything. I'm like, could you show me how you use it? And they turn it on, but they don't actually turn the lights on. And that has actually happened a lot more than I expected. And I think this is kind of one of the many aspects of the educational side that we're working towards, which is in a decade when everyone's using red light therapy and it's super normal, it will become comedic how many times we've tried to use red light therapy, but have failed to either turn it on or have had it so far away from us that we're really not doing anything resembling red light therapy. And that's been a quite consistent thing that I found in my discussions. Yeah, so the first testimonial that I was sort of involved in, which is right at the turn of 2020 into 2021, was my best friend had a bike accident about 10 months prior. So we were biking home, he fell off his bike, he broke his elbow and it was bad break, and he developed severe arthritis in the elbow to the point where for this 10-month period, he couldn't do a push-up or a pull-up without severe arthritic pain. Yeah. This is when we were 25. And so his, top class Ann Arbor-based surgeon was like, you can try physical therapy, but really you have to learn to live with it. And so what he did for 10 months was learn to live with this, which is terrible for an active 25-year-old where a lot of the activities we would normally do were now, he could only have one arm for that. And so, that was just like a lot. That's just like a lot for anyone. So many people have experienced this injury resulting in a chronic condition. And then at the end of 2020, I started to learn and hear about red light therapy. And he sort of became the first experiment in a sense. And so it was incredible. I didn't believe it, but a week goes by of him using a red light therapy bulb. And he's like, P, you wouldn't believe it, but like, I literally don't have arthritic pain anymore. It's actually completely gone. And this was 10 months of having arthritic pain, 1 week of using red light therapy. And so, I had to have him demonstrate to me for me to believe exactly what he was saying, because I had read clinical studies, right? I had read all these different things, but I had never seen it happen in such a fast, profound, meaningful way. But yeah, 1 week in, his arthritic pain went away. He's a daily user of red light therapy on the elbow. He's now a regrown cartilage. His x-rays have confirmed he no longer even has arthritis. And this is the first personal testimonial where I'm like, this is definitely world-changing. And how lucky we are that we get to be involved in this industry before the world knows it's world-changing. Yeah. Because if your experience can happen to anyone who has even just arthritis, if that was the only thing, then it's the most important step forward in healthcare that I can think of. And that's only arthritis, right? And then it's like, oh, the same reason it healed your elbow. Then the next week, my other friend's grandmother used to have her 2 chronic degenerative knees who had scheduled knee surgery, and within 1 week had canceled her knee surgery because her pain levels were down to 0 now. So it was like week after week. And since then, this has now been years, but since then I just have so many stories of miraculous recoveries of people that thought I'm living with a chronic condition. And then a week goes by and they're like, oh my God, I guess I no longer have arthritis. That's never a sentence I thought I would say, And so I love getting testimonials. I love elevating testimonials. I love creating more testimonials, even from interviews like this and opportunities like this. It's like, I view it as how many more testimonials can we make? Eventually, there will be enough testimonials where everyone will know somebody who's had a miraculous recovery. And when everyone knows someone who's used red light therapy for a miraculous recovery, we're kind of there. We're kind of at the point where it's like, all right, new paradigm in, old paradigm out, red light therapy standard of care. Absolutely. The beauty of light therapy as an industry is red and infrared light exactly do that. Red and infrared light not only demonstrably heal and reverse arthritis, but we now have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, 8,000 and counting, clinical studies on photobiomodulation, the technical science term for light therapy, showing this from arthritis to depression to hair loss to acne to even Alzheimer's, to plantar fasciitis to Achilles tendon, if you can think of it, there's probably been a clinical study using photobiomodulation on that disease, on that injury, that is now public and available and peer-reviewed. And spoiler, it's safe and it's effective. And that's what I'm really just passionate about communicating, is it's like everyone hearing these messages has either themselves or somebody in their family that can have a massive, profound, meaningful benefit from red light therapy. And the only gap right now is that they don't either know it, they don't believe it, or they haven't tried it yet. And once that gap is bridged, it's just going to be a healthier world, a world where diagnoses and prognoses are greatly diminished because we're resolving hydration in a world of chronically dehydrated populace. I'd say the most common misconception about red light therapy is that most people think it's like, oh, I put a red light bulb in my house and now I'm doing red light therapy. Cool. Whereas, no, you have red light in your home. You see visible red light, but we're talking about red light therapy as a dose or an amount of energy being absorbed by the skin. So a really high-powered LED-based device right to my arm for 10 minutes is thousands of times more energy than a red light bulb in your home impacting your elbow, to the point that a red light bulb in your home doesn't have any meaningful biological red light therapy effects on your elbow, whereas putting the pad directly on it absolutely does, whether you're a horse or whether you're a bird or whether you're a human. The same biological functions are at play. And so there's, as far as the misconception, there's two conversations that are happening at the same time that need to kind of be both separated and recognize that they're two different conversations, which is red light therapy, which is the dose of light your body's receiving, and circadian rhythm light, which is the visual environment that you see. And so red light bulbs in your house are a good thing. I'm not saying don't have red light bulbs in your house, because after the sun sets, you want to minimize your visual intake of UV, blue, and green light. Put your mind into a place where it's winding down for sleep at night, mimicking your natural environment. So red light bulbs in your home for the visual, hormonal, circadian rhythm side are a great thing. But they give you no amount of red light therapy, which is the dose of energy your elbow or your back receives. And so both things are very important. Circadian rhythm light environment is important and essential and key, but it's a very different, what it looks like to do this is very different than what it looks like to do red light therapy. And so a lot of times people put these things in the same category, and when you put them in the same category, you don't do either correctly. And when you don't do either correctly, and a week goes by, you're like, that was actually all fake, and now I don't believe it anymore because I installed a red light bulb in my home, and my back is still killing me. Yeah. It's like, So I'd say that's the one that's just most consistently confused, yeah. which is an important one too, because the people asking that question are coming from the right place. They're trying to understand how do I do this effectively, but there's just so many times where I've seen people get a red light therapy device, but use it in such a way that it's ineffective. And it doesn't matter how good your device is, if you're using it too far from your body, or if you're not turning it on, for example, it doesn't matter what device you bought. It doesn't matter how unhealthy or how healthy you are. It simply isn't going to have an impact unless you're doing it in the way that you need to be, which is direct skin contact with the right irradiance. Skin, being the largest organ of our body, is an amazing recipient of red and infrared light therapy for the same exact reasons as everything else, which is increasing blood flow, reducing inflammation, and increasing cellular energy or ATP production. Basically, skin cells are trying to be the best skin cell they can be. When they have enough energy to do that, they flourish. They fight off acne. They delay the onset of wrinkles. They grow thicker, fuller hair. Whatever cell of your body is specialized to do its task, having more light means having more energy to thrive and do what it's meant to do. In the case of skin, there's pronounced, obvious, demonstrable benefits. This includes reduction of acne, reduction of wrinkles, thicker, fuller hair, both on the top of the head, but also eyebrows, eyelashes, and also sort of a healthy glow tan. So we talk about this, people will ask me all the time, does red light therapy tan you? And the answer is no, in the way that you're using the word tan. But yes, it gives you more of a tan. And I'll clarify that. When we think about getting tan, we're getting exposure to ultraviolet rays that cause a burning of the skin that the body responds to by creating more melanin. Melanin being the molecule that gives us our skin tone. Someone who's very pale has much less melanin than someone who's very dark-skinned. That's one aspect of tanning, is the creation of more melanin stimulated by UV light. However, you also have another aspect of tanning, which I call the healthy glow tan. And this is when you increase the density of capillary tubes or of blood vessels on the skin surface. So red light therapy doesn't have any UV light in it, has no ultraviolet light, there's no burning aspect to it. However, when the skin is healthier, when it has more energy, and when it has a denser sort of network of capillary tubes under the skin, you get tanner skin. You get more radiant skin. You get what people describe as sort of a healthy glow. The difference between a leathery, wrinkled tan body and a glowing, supple tan body is that it's that combination of these two factors. So red light therapy is, great for skin. The most common use case in America right now is for skincare because it's safe, it's inexpensive, it has meaningful, obvious visual results. Same thing with hair growth and not only hair top of the head, but eyebrows, eyelashes, etc. And so I'm very excited to hear that you are moving into skincare because it's one of these things where when you're doing skincare, you also have this side effect benefit of the bone and the brain behind your skin also getting the same benefit. So I'm doing my skin, but the near infrared light is also helping my teeth and helping my hair and helping my brain and helping my sinuses, all the way down to if I ever wake up with something resembling a cold or a sore throat, first thing that I do, I hold my mouth open and put my panel up. Same exact reason. Increased blood flow, reduced inflammation, increased cellular energy. But skincare is a wonderful use case of red light therapy. And as I think right now, the most common one that people are most familiar with.
Going back to the Super Bowl, it's a big year. In the news, I'm sure you might have heard that Taylor Swift is attending the Super Bowl. So hypothetically, if Taylor Swift was to write a song inspired by the relaxing ambience of Lumaflex and red light therapy, what do you think the title and the lyrics would be, and how might it tie into the Super Bowl experience?
Well, she's already written a song called Maroon. Maroon light is definitely in our proper wavelengths and exposure. I think Taylor Swift and music in general is a great example of how we actually intake new educational content. I think music and songs, things that get stuck in your head, things where you learn the chorus and then basically are saying a sentence over and over and over again, are actually very relevant to furthering public discourse. And so with her current music as an example, this is a tangent, but in Anti-Hero, she talks about staring directly at the sun. This is a principle called sun gazing, which is another form of light therapy. Something that requires a lot more explanation than beyond this interview series. However, she does say the sentence, "I stare directly at the sun." I also do that every morning and at night, stare directly at the sun. And in one sentence, it fills your brain with light that you otherwise wouldn't be getting to the middle of your brain. But as an aside to that, I hope that we see her write a kick-ass album about light therapy, about this new healthcare paradigm. I hope that we see her write a kick-ass album about light therapy, about this new healthcare paradigm. Her reach and fan base could be healed in an extremely meaningful way. Yeah. And I think that it would be classic America if the way that we finally change our healthcare paradigm, it would be through a song or album of Taylor Swift singing about the benefits of red light therapy.
What do you think she'd call the album?
Call the album? Yeah. Well, she already has an album called Red. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like she's been playing with us, you know.
No, they should call it Infrared. There we go.
Infrared.
The next one.
Maybe solar. Soul. So the word in English for the sun, 1,000 years ago, before a whole series of events that changed their language, was soul. S-O-L. And so the word soul, even saying this word soul now, when we spell it S-O-U-L, is like adding the U to the energy of the sun. All of your energy comes from soul, comes from sun. And what you are is you're the you of that, right? You are the perspective, the loop that all the energy is coming through. So I could see her having a lot of content to draw from in the study of photobiology, how light impacts life, and how life is even made of light. And I look forward to the day that she calls me and says, "You need to consult me on my newest album about solar energy." And I'll be like, "I got you." Taylor.
That's a
Let's
wrap.
heal the world.
Perfect. Beautiful. That's a wrap in the can.